Hello there, thanks for keeping it RTV. We hoped you enjoyed the summit's take on the role of Africa in the new global order. Now we start with the headlines. On Wednesday, President Paul Kagame met with the founder and director of the Research Institute Against Digestive Cancer. Also coming up, Rwanda's Prime Minister received the chairperson of the National Council in Namibia. We're glad you chose RTV News. I am Isabel Masos. At the top of our edition on Wednesday, President Paul Kagame met with the founder and director of the Research Institute Against Digestive Cancer, specializing in conducting research in human surgery, focusing on cancerous diseases of the stomach that are not minimally invasive. Now, in May 2021, the head of state officially opened an auditorium named after him in northeast of France. The IRCAD Institute is building its branch in Rwanda in Masaka in Kicukiro district, which is also the first on the African continent. During his visit to IRCAD in France, President Paul Kagame praised the cooperation of the institution, especially for their agreement to open a branch in Rwanda, saying it will help young Rwandans of tomorrow to access knowledge based on technology and research. Moving on, Rwanda's Prime Minister received the chairperson of the National Council in Namibia, who is on a benchmark visit to Rwanda. Discussions held focused on the interactions between the parliaments and governments of both countries. Olive Ntete has more.
The discussions held on Wednesday between the two dignitaries focused on the interaction between the government and the parliament in finding solutions to the problems that hinder the development and well-being of the population they represent. Honorable Lucas Sinimbo Muha, the chairperson of the National Council of Namibia, expressed lessons learned in Rwanda, including accountability.
We also came to learn from the Office of the Prime Minister the fact that this office coordinates all the activities of government. So we came to learn as to how this office is linked to Parliament. We are from Parliament. And then compare notes as to how it is doing here, its affairs, and how affairs is also done, of similar nature, is also done in Namibia. So in short, this is what brought us to this office. And for your information, we have learned. We have learned, most especially the processes of accountability. So that is much that I can carry home.
Senator John Bonsvideri notes that because African countries have a lot in common, cooperation among them is advantageous for the growth of the continent.
What I should say is that even in the Senate, in the Parliament generally, we have what we call parliamentary diplomacy. And the parliamentary diplomacy means that we should find a way of working closely with other institutions or parliament in terms of knowing how they function and how we function, but also building what I would call some kind of collaboration where there is a need for us to support each other. It becomes essential when you have a relationship. It becomes easier to associate when you have a relationship. So in this case, I would say we are, with the visit of the National Council of Namibia to Rwanda, is an opportunity for us to build that relationship and collaborate in different different ways in terms of what we do and what they do. So really, I see it as an opportunity. If you build a relationship with other institutions, there are a lot of opportunities that you can derive from that relationship.
The chairperson of the National Council in Namibia, Lucas Sinimbo Muha, and his delegation initiated their visit to Rwanda on Monday, and it is expected to last 5 days. Olive Ntete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive. The Central Bank of Rwanda has reassured the general public that the commodity prices are decreasing, hence anticipated increase of the agricultural domestic production. Prince Manzina reports.
The governor of the Rwanda Central Bank, John Rwangombwa, states that even though the monetary policy and financial stability continues to be affected by the high commodity prices on the international scale, there is no immediate impact on the stability of Rwanda's financial sector.
So on the outlook on the financial sector, as we said, we expect it to remain sound and stable because we are sitting on strong capital base, we have sufficient liquidity, and the quality of the loans has really greatly improved. Then, of course, we'll continue doing our work, monitoring what is happening with these financial institutions. We are monitoring what is happening globally in terms of the financial institution that we've had. We've had failures in the US, we've had Credit Suisse in Switzerland that have failed, so everybody would really be worried that might become a global financial crisis. So our monitoring so far indicates that we have limited impact of these failures on our own financial sector, but we are working with the banks mainly that would have direct channels with these global financial institutions. So for now, we don't see any immediate impact on these failures globally on our stability of our financial sector.
The report of the National Bank of Rwanda, published on Wednesday, demonstrates that in 2022, the agricultural sector grew by only 1.6% from 6.4% in 2021. The decline in food crop and underperformance of export crops by 3.5% were the main causes. The National Bank of Rwanda demonstrates that the world annual average inflation is projected to fall from 8.8% to 6.6% in 2023. The governor of the Rwanda Central Bank, John Rwangombwa, states that the overall headline inflation is expected to remain high in the first half of this year, but the agricultural production will contribute to the deceleration of inflation.
The monetary policy front, as we are facing these challenges of inflation, we had to act as the monetary authority, and we had to increase the central bank policy rate. So from the first quarter of last year, we had projected increased inflation, mainly because of the agricultural conditions we were facing that time. As you remember, the war in Ukraine had not yet started, so we increased our policy rate by 0.5% then. That's in February last year, from 4.5 to 5%. We didn't make any increase in May, but by August, the pressures from the war in Ukraine were vivid in our numbers, and so we had to take action. Since then, we've been increasing almost every quarter, and we've moved from 4.5% we were at in beginning of last year to 7% today to try and really deal with this inflation. In fact, when you look at the main inflation we target using monetary tools, that is what we call the core inflation, that has started going down from toward the end of last year, and we expect this to continue going down. But because of the food inflation, the overall headline inflation is expected to remain high in the first half of this year. And I hope, I know we have experts here from the Ministry of Agriculture, maybe the rains we see today will have a positive impact on season B, and that could have a big driver to bring down inflation, maybe even before the end of the year as we are targeting. So depending on how season B turns out to be, and we expect to start seeing results in end May, beginning June. So maybe we expect to have better numbers beginning of the second half of this year.
In the banking sector, the new lending expanded by 12.9% in 2022, and the value of loan applications grew by 10.9% to 1,696 billion Rwandan francs in 2022 from 1,528 billion Rwandan francs in 2021. The outstanding non-performing loans in banking sector dropped to 107 billion Rwandan francs in 2022 from 158 billion Rwandan francs in 2021, with the ratio 3.1% in 2022 from 4.6% in 2021. The use of the Rwanda Integrated Payments Processing System, RIPS, continued to increase as explained by the Deputy Governor of the Rwanda Central Bank, Soraya Hakuziyaremye.
Transaction, umubare w'abantu bahererekanya amafaranga bakoresheje RIPS.
The users of RIPPS, especially in the evening hours and weekends, are 70,000. and with 4.3 billion transactions. This means that these transactions were necessary. The second thing is that adding 11 microfinances, and in 3 months, their transactions were 1,400, which means that also the RIPPS was needed in transferring funds between microfinances and between the microfinance and the banks. According to these numbers, it is obvious that the use of RIPPS in after working hours and also on weekends was necessary.
The GDP growth rate averaged 8.2% in 2022 after the 10.9% recorded in 2021, majorly due to the 12.2% growth in the service sector and the industrial production export growth by 33.2% in 2022. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Still on money matters, the governor of the Central Bank of Rwanda, John Rwanda, has pointed out that despite the delayed implementation of the monetary union in the East African community, other measures are being implemented, such as merging of operations of financial institutions.
The East African Community's Monetary Union is among of the 4 pillars of the EAC in its journey towards the real integration among its member states. This East African Community single currency was set to be implemented by 2024, as various economic experts points out the consequences that have been raised due to the delay of the single currency implementation. With just a simple example, when you are coming from Rwanda to Kenya, going to purchase various commodities first require you to exchange the Rwanda's currency to dollars. Then you go in Kenya with dollars. All that procedure leads to currency depreciation, as this also leads to a loss in trading between countries. The governor of the Central Bank of Rwanda, John Rwanda, highlights the obstacles that led to delay of this monetary union implementation.
Hagomba kujyaho monetary institute ya East Africa ariyo ifasha gutegura.
There was supposed to be an establishment of the East African Monetary Union, which was to prepare the establishment of the Monetary Union or the establishment of one central bank. That monetary institute was supposed to be established in 2015. Until today, it has not yet established, as it is supposed to be established by the East African Community Ministers, which is among of the things that delayed its implementation. It was about to be established, but there were some misunderstandings on where to put its headquarters. As to that, they are still discussing on where it will be established. However, the governor of the Central Bank of Rwanda also pointed out that even though there is a still long way to achieve the implementation of the single currency, but they set other options, including merging the operations of the financial institutions in the EAC region.
Icyo turimo dukora twebwe no kugeza guhuza imikorere yacu, guhuza uko ducunga ubukungu, guhuza uko ducunga za amategeko agenga.
For us, what we are doing is to merge our operations, merging our financial institution services, as we discussed about that, and we even signed agreements on the currency convertibility, that even though we haven't started this implementation of the single currency, but we can improve our cross-border trade, so that, for example, a Ugandan can bring Ugandan shillings at the Rwanda market and get something without any need of exchange. That's what we are emphasizing through this East African payment system and other thing of currency convertibility.
Tubinyujije mu cyo twita East African payment system, n'icyo kintu cya currency convertibility.
Even though the process seems to be difficult, the governors of the central banks in East Africa have agreed to fast-track the implementation of a single currency by 2031 after a set deadline of 2024 proved to be unviable. Adams Kwizera, RTV News.
Thank you, Adams. We move on to more news. Non-professional bailiffs say that they are worried about the nature of the law regarding the conclusion of cases in Rwanda. Jessica Gasaro brings us this report.
In different parts of Kigali city, we find that some residents have come to request various services, including those for the completion of cases or other plenary activities.
Those I know, it feels like their work is done. What is left to do is put it to work, what we agreed on. I already have the decision. This is why we ask that the government help us, because every time we come here, it changes the version of the answer it gives.
They say they often turn to non-professional bailiffs to settle cases because the service is free, while professional bailiffs charges exorbitant fees.
The only difference between them is the price, since they both give the same service. But what can say, he's a businessman because you pay him 300,000 Rwanda francs.
Most of these cases are completed by the executive secretaries of the sectors, except for those decided by the Council of Elders at the cell level, and property cases decided by the Gacaca court. Those non-professional bailiffs say that even though they have that responsibility, they are worried about being wronged in court when there is a mistake or wrong conclusion of the case, since some of them have not studied the law or received enough training in regard of this work.
Nyuma y'amahugurwa abantu bamaze kumenya amategeko cyasobanukirwa uko agenda avugururwa.
After the training, when people already know the law, this would help us finish our duties as we ought. Another thing is to look at how they can put insurance for us. For example, if the executive checked the case and found out that the case finished badly or something was unfair, hence when you go to court, you go alone.
Akenshi rero usanga hari igihe biba ngombwa ko ujya mu rukiko akaba ari wisobanura kuri cya kibazo wenyine.
They also say that this backlog of cases can slow down other services they already have to provide to the public.
It is understandable that if there is a mistake that was made, it can be corrected, but they have to be helped with a certain institution first, and this will help if an employee has a problem. There must be someone in charge of keeping the service. He shouldn't stop since what he did was beneficial to work. It
is a concern of the parliamentarian that the mission of the Unit of Rwandans, Human Rights and the Fight Against the Genocide was recently convened to the Minister of Justice and the representative of the government, Dr. Emmanuel Ugirashebuja, who promised them that the ministry has started to solve the problem.
Before, it never used to be like that, where they take someone to court on their own, but what we wish is if they are taken to court, then we should at least be a part of it as the Ministry of Justice, because it might help the case for it to be over before it creates more problems. But once it is known that the person has finished, yet they have been accused and they need a lawyer, that is when we think they should have the security of knowing that even if you go to court, you already have someone to support you.
The Ministry of Justice say that it will continue to train non-professional bailiffs and reform the law in order to protect them from all the risk that comes from the work they do, to complete cases and do it on the behalf of the state. Jessica Agasaro, RTV News.
Thank you, Jessica. Researchers and teachers of agriculture-related courses are expected to contribute fully to the development of the sector for the government to increase its investment in research. Jessica Gasaro continues.
Insightful presentations and discussions from leading industry experts and other exciting activities lined up in this international conference on business models in agriculture. Furthermore, those who attended expressed their joy and honor to be part of these changes expected in the agriculture field.
Historical moment in our time here on the African continent, and then to hold such an international conference on business models in agriculture. And the purpose of the conference is because that we've got almost 50% of the farmers who are still dying in poverty. And the purpose of this conference is to work with the farmers, the smallholders farmers, to add value, to monetize agriculture, so that we do not die poor, but we move from poverty to prosperity.
If we can change our mindset, we as Africans, we always marginalize poverty. We got to start thinking differently, to change the game, to know that agriculture is the next game changer in the future generation. Let us empower our youth and bring them to the national development and equip them with tools that they will be able to be the next game changers for the future generation.
However, in discussions with teachers, researchers studying agriculture, and representatives of government agencies from all over the world, it is necessary for the government to increase the amount of money invested in research in this field.
Improve our farming from traditional to technological approached farming that is highly producing. And of course, also learning to use those professionals, those who are experts into it. If you are a livestock farmer, you need to have some veterinary officers on your farm who will be advising you on how to go that way.
The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources declares that increasing research effort to fill up the gaps in agriculture is prioritized by the ministry. Hence, they consider the importance of research in development of agriculture and the farmer in particular.
So we've seen here the participation of a number of researchers from the University of Rwanda who are bringing their innovation that are going to be showcased here during this conference. And those innovations are going to inspire other African countries. On the other hand, our country is also going to benefit from innovations from other countries, like those innovations from Israel in fighting mango diseases that are really going to be beneficial for us, as in our country we are facing this issue of pests attacking mango. And thanks to the innovations that we are seeing now that are from Israel, we are ready to get those technologies and to bring them in our country so that we solve those challenges we are facing now.
The 5th Rwanda Population and Housing Census, held last year in 2022, showed that 2,280,854 households, with 69% of them are dependent on agricultural work, of which 83% are in rural areas, while 34% are in cities. The census also showed that the agricultural sector provides employment at a rate of 53.4%. Jessica Agasaro, RTV News.
That's my time with you. It's always a joy bringing you the latest here in Rwanda and beyond. On behalf of the entire team here at RBA that makes this happen, thanks for watching and do keep it RTV.